My name is Maya, and I have always been the quiet, observant one in our family. My older sister, Elena, is the exact opposite. She is loud, beautiful, and has a way of making everyone believe she is the star of every room she enters. Last Sunday, our entire extended family gathered at my parents' house for a big dinner to celebrate their anniversary. The table was full of delicious food, and the sound of laughter filled the air. Suddenly, Elena stood up, her face pale and her eyes brimming with tears. The room went silent instantly. She pointed a trembling finger at me and said, her voice shaking with emotion, "I can't keep this secret anymore. Maya is telling people terrible, disgusting lies about me. She actually called my boss and told him that I was stealing money from the company." I froze in my seat, my fork halfway to my mouth. I hadn't said a single word to her boss. In fact, I didn't even know exactly where she worked these days. My heart started thumping against my ribs like a trapped bird. Everyone turned to look at me with shock. Elena looked so sad and so hurt, like a victim in a tragic movie. She wasn't just lying, she was performing a masterpiece. How did she flip the narrative so perfectly? "Maya, how could you do something so cruel to your own sister?" my mother whispered. Her face was white, and she looked like she was about to collapse. I finally found my voice, though it felt small. "Mom, I didn't do that. I haven't talked to anyone at her job. I don't even have her boss's phone number or the company name." But as soon as I tried to defend myself, my father slammed his heavy hand on the wooden table. The plates rattled loudly. "That's enough, Maya," he shouted, his face turning red. "Elena showed us the emails. She showed us the digital messages you sent. We saw your name on the screen." Elena sobbed louder then, leaning her head onto my mother's shoulder for support. It was a perfect, heartbreaking scene. My parents rushed to comfort her, rubbing her back and telling her everything would be okay. They didn't even look at me anymore. They looked at me like I was a monster who had betrayed the family bloodline. Elena peeked at me from behind her tissue for a split second. Her crying stopped, and she gave me a tiny, cold, triumphant smile. This wasn't spontaneous. This was a script she had practiced many times. When did she start planning this evil play? To understand why she was doing this, you have to know the truth about what happened 2 weeks ago. I was at Elena's apartment helping her move some heavy boxes. I found a blue folder that had fallen behind her desk. Inside were private documents about our grandmother's inheritance and medical savings. My sister had been in charge of those bank accounts since Grandma got sick last year. The papers showed that large amounts of money were missing from the surgery fund. It wasn't just a few dollars, it was over $20,000. I confronted her privately that afternoon in her kitchen. I told her, "Elena, I saw the bank statements. Where did Grandma's heart surgery money go?" She didn't deny it then. She just got very quiet and told me to mind my own business. She told me I didn't understand how expensive her own life had become while taking care of an old person. I told her that if she didn't put the money back or tell our parents the truth, I would have to say something to protect Grandma. I thought I was helping her do the right thing. But now I see that I was just a threat. By calling me a liar first, she ensured no one would believe me. I sat in my room that night, staring at the dark ceiling and feeling the weight of the silence. I started thinking back to our childhood, searching for the patterns I had ignored for 20 years. I remembered when I was 10 and a very expensive vase in the hallway broke. Elena told Mom I did it, even though I was outside playing in the dirt. I remembered in high school when her car got a big dent, and she told Dad I had borrowed it without asking. Back then, I thought they were just sister problems. I thought she was just impulsive or scared. But sitting there in the dark, I started connecting the dots. Elena wasn't just a brat, she was a calculated manipulator. She always made sure there was a bad guy in the story so she could remain the perfect girl. She used our parents' love for honesty like a sharp weapon against me. She knew they valued integrity above everything else, so she framed me for the one thing they couldn't forgive, being a liar and a backstabber. She had spent a lifetime building a reputation for grace while making me look like the jealous, troubled sister. But this time, the stakes were much higher than a vase. I thought back to the very first red flag that I had dismissed. It happened a month ago at the local hospital while we were visiting Grandma. Grandma was sleeping, and Elena was typing furiously on her laptop. She looked stressed and angry. I offered to go downstairs to buy her a coffee, and when I came back earlier than expected, she tilted her screen away so fast it almost fell. I caught a tiny glimpse of a website for a luxury travel agency specializing in private islands. At the time, I thought she was just dreaming of a long vacation. But then, a few days later, she showed up at dinner wearing a brand new designer watch. When I asked her about it, she laughed and said it was a cheap fake she bought at a street market for $20. I felt the weight of that watch when I held her wrist for a moment. It was heavy. It was real gold and sapphire. Why would someone who was supposedly struggling to pay Grandma's bills buy a $5,000 watch? I didn't want to think the worst of my sister, but the numbers didn't add up. There had to be a digital trail. There was proof somewhere if I looked. The next morning, my phone was absolutely exploding with angry text messages from my cousins, aunts, and even old family friends. They called me ungrateful, jealous, and cruel. I wanted to text back and scream the truth to everyone. I wanted to tell them about the gold watch and the missing bank papers from the blue folder. But I stopped myself. I remembered what my favorite teacher once told me: when someone is trying to provoke a reaction from you, silence is often your strongest shield. If I fought back now with just my words, I would only look like the unstable and bitter person Elena claimed I was. So, I did something Elena never expected me to do. I stopped reacting entirely. I didn't call my parents to argue or beg. I didn't post any defensive messages on social media. I just went to my job, did my work, and kept my head down. I became a ghost in the family circle. I decided to become a silent observer instead of a loud participant. I started watching Elena's public life through a fake profile. Silence makes a liar nervous, and a nervous person always makes a mistake. A few days later, we were both at my Aunt Jane's house for a quick afternoon visit. Elena was there in the kitchen, surrounded by relatives, holding court. She was telling the dramatic story of the big lie, all over again to anyone who would listen. I was sitting quietly in the dark hallway, out of sight, just listening to her performance. She told my aunt with a sigh. And then Maya sent that horrible email to my boss, Mr. Henderson, on Tuesday morning at exactly 9 a.m. It was so embarrassing. I froze. I knew for an absolute fact that Elena's boss wasn't named Mr. Henderson. I had seen her professional LinkedIn page a week ago while I was researching, and her boss was a woman named Sarah Miller. Elena was so caught up in the drama of her own creation that she was inventing fake names to make the story sound more professional and official. She was adding extra details to make the lie feel thick, but the details were factually wrong. It was a subtle slip, something most people would ignore, but to me, it was a huge sign. It confirmed that the emails she showed our parents were fakes. The situation became much more painful when I saw how it was affecting our younger brother, Leo. Leo is only 15, and he has always looked up to both of us for guidance. Yesterday, I saw him sitting alone on the front porch looking incredibly sad. I sat down next to him, but he physically moved away from me. "Why did you really do it, Maya?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Elena is working so hard to take care of Grandma's house and bills. Why would you try to get her fired from her dream job?" My heart broke into a million pieces. Elena was using Leo as an emotional anchor for her lie. She was making him feel like he had to protect her from me, his other sister. It wasn't just about my reputation in the town anymore. She was poisoning the mind of a teenager and making him lose his sense of trust in his own family. I looked at Leo's confused, hurt face and realized I couldn't just sit back and be a quiet victim. I couldn't let her destroy his childhood. This wasn't just a fight between two sisters, it was a battle for the soul of our family. I decided to use my professional skills to fight back. I work as a senior data analyst, and my entire job is to find hidden patterns in complex numbers. I started a secret, encrypted file on my personal computer. I recorded every single time Elena lied about a specific date, a person's name, or a time of day. I took high-resolution screenshots of her new clothes that she claimed were years old. I even went back through my own cell phone records and GPS history to prove exactly where I was on the day she claimed I sent those emails. I discovered that on the Tuesday at 9 a.m. she mentioned, I was actually in a recorded, high-level Zoom meeting with my entire management team at work. There was no physical way I could have been sending fake emails to her boss while presenting a complicated slideshow to 20 people. I started keeping a log of every interaction. I wrote down the dates she withdrew money from grandma's account versus the dates she posted photos of herself at expensive uptown restaurants. A pattern was forming, and it was a very ugly one. I was becoming methodical, and I was finally getting close to the truth. I discovered something even more strange while talking to different relatives over the phone. I called my Aunt Jane and asked her exactly what Elena had told her in private. Aunt Jane said Elena told her I was jealous of her new corporate promotion. Then I called my cousin Marco, who lives in another city. He said Elena told him I was struggling with my mental health and was making things up because I was lonely and bitter. She was telling different, specialized versions of the story to different people. She was tailoring the lie to fit the specific listener's fears. To the older relatives, I was disrespectful and ungrateful. To the younger cousins, I was crazy and obsessed. Why so many versions? It's because a single, simple lie is easy to break with one fact, but a complex web of lies is much harder to untangle. She was making sure that if we all talked to each other, we would be too confused by the conflicting stories to find the real truth. She was building a maze of deception, and she thought I was lost forever inside it. But she forgot that I map mazes for a living. One evening, while I was picking up some groceries at the local store, I ran into Elena's longtime best friend, Chloe. I fully expected her to turn away or scold me, but she didn't move. She looked around the parking lot to make sure no one was watching and then walked quickly up to me. "Maya," she whispered, looking nervous. "I don't believe a word of what Elena is saying to people. I've known her since middle school, and I know exactly how she gets when she wants something or when she is hiding a secret." My heart leaped with a sudden hope. Finally, someone else saw through the brilliant act. Chloe told me that Elena had been talking about getting a massive payout from the family very soon. She also mentioned that Elena had asked her to help her edit some digital screenshots a few weeks ago on a graphic design program. Chloe had said no because it felt wrong, but she realized now what Elena was trying to do to me. She was afraid to speak up publicly because Elena owed her money, but Chloe saw something important. She saw the proof being manufactured on a laptop. With Chloe's secret help, I finally got the one piece of information I really needed, the actual name of the company Elena worked for. It wasn't the big, famous real estate firm she told our parents about during the anniversary dinner. She had actually been fired from that prestigious place 6 months ago for financial irregularities and credit card abuse. She was actually working for a tiny local business as a part-time receptionist. I found a public legal record of her termination from the previous job. It stated very clearly that she had misused a company credit card for personal luxury purchases. This was concrete, undeniable evidence. It proved she had a documented history of taking money that didn't belong to her. It also proved she had been lying to our parents for months about her big career promotion and her high salary. She was living a double life of lies. She was pretending to be a high-flying executive to justify her expensive taste, but the money was actually coming from Grandma's medical savings. This was much bigger than a lie about a fake email. This was criminal fraud. I started wondering what her ultimate goal was. Why would she go through all this incredible trouble just to frame her own sister? Then I remembered a conversation from last Christmas. Our parents were planning to sell their beautiful vacation cottage and put the entire profit into a trust fund for the three of us. If I was officially labeled as unstable or dishonest by the family, they might legally remove me from the trust to protect the money. Elena wanted the whole inheritance for herself. She wanted the house, the money, and the total control of the family legacy. She was already benefiting from her victim status right now. Our parents had given her an extra $3,000 last week to help with the stress caused by my supposed attacks. She was literally profiting from every lie she told. She was playing a high-stakes game for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It wasn't just about protecting her secret, it was about a total takeover of the family's assets. She was willing to leave me with nothing just to satisfy her greed. My sister was a predator in a designer dress. I realized then that Elena's plan was even deeper and more calculated than I had first thought. She hadn't just made up a lie at the dinner table, she had been setting the stage for this confrontation for nearly a year. I found an old dusty diary of Grandma's that Elena had tried to throw away in the recycle bin. In the very back pages, Grandma had written sad notes about how Maya seems so angry and distant lately, and Maya keeps asking me strange questions about my money. I had never said those things to Grandma. Elena had been whispering poison in Grandma's ear for a very long time, making an old woman think her favorite granddaughter was someone to fear. She set me up to look unstable and greedy long before she ever made the public accusation. She was a master of the long con. She knew that if she built a history of me being difficult, her big lie would be easy for everyone to swallow. She had calculated every move like a professional chess player. She thought she was 10 steps ahead of me. I decided to play her game for a while. I stopped trying to prove my innocence to anyone. When my mother called me to scold me for hurting Elena, I just said, "Okay, Mom," and hung up the phone. When Elena sent me a smug, arrogant text message saying she forgave me for my sins, I didn't reply at all. To the outside world, it looked like I had finally given up and admitted defeat. Elena became more confident than ever before. She started showing up to family events with even more expensive jewelry and designer bags. She told everyone that I had confessed my guilt to her in private and that she was being the bigger person by not calling the police on me. Our parents praised her daily for her incredible grace and patience. They told her she was a saint for dealing with a troubled sister like me. Elena was at the absolute height of her power. She thought she had successfully erased me from the family's heart. She thought I was defeated and that her dark secrets were safe forever. But she didn't realize I was just waiting for the finish line. The final turning point came when I went back to the garage to look through the boxes I had helped her move. I found a small black USB drive that had been carefully taped to the bottom of an old box of winter shoes. I took it home and plugged it into my laptop with shaking hands. My heart was racing as the files slowly loaded onto the screen. It was even more incriminating than I had imagined. On that drive were digital copies of Grandma's forged signature. There were dozens of files titled bank_template and Maya_fake_email_draft. She had actually saved her work like a student. She was so proud of her deceptions that she had kept the templates she used to create the fake evidence against me. There were also clear photos of bank statements that showed the money moving directly from Grandma's surgery account into a private account in Elena's name. It was a digital trail of breadcrumbs she never expected anyone to find. She thought it was buried in the trash. This wasn't just a rumor anymore. I had the literal tools of her crime. Then, my ally Chloe contacted me again with a final gift. She had secretly recorded a phone call where Elena was bragging about how incredibly easy it was to fool our clueless parents. On the recording, you could hear Elena laughing loudly. She said, "Maya is so predictable and stupid. She thinks she can stop me, but Mom and Dad think she's a total psycho now. I could tell them the moon is made of blue cheese and they'd believe me over her." Hearing her voice, so cold, so mean, and so full of hatred, made me feel physically sick to my stomach. But it was the final, undeniable piece of evidence I needed to end this. I had the bank records, the forged signatures, the fake email templates, and now a vocal confession on tape. I didn't just have the truth. I had the perfect timing. I knew exactly when I was going to use this folder of facts. Our parents were hosting a massive 40th anniversary party next Saturday at a hotel. Everyone would be there. The whole family, all their business partners, and every friend Elena had lied to. I spent the entire week preparing my presentation. I didn't feel happy or excited about what was coming. I just felt a heavy, cold sense of duty to my family and to Grandma. I printed out the bank statements in large, clear fonts. I made high-quality copies of the forged signatures next to Grandma's real ones. I put the audio recording on a small, powerful speaker that I could hide in my jacket pocket. I knew I had to be extremely careful. If I walked into the party screaming or crying, I would just look like the crazy daughter again. I had to be the data analyst. I had to present the hard facts calmly and let the family reach their own logical conclusions. I chose my outfit very carefully, something simple, dark, and professional. I wanted to look like the honest, hard-working woman I actually was. I wasn't going to expose her for simple revenge. I was doing it to save Grandma's remaining life savings and to clear my name so I could be a sister to Leo again. The impact had to be absolute. The night of the grand anniversary party finally arrived. My parents' ballroom was beautiful, filled with white roses and expensive champagne. Elena was the star of the evening, wearing a sparkling gold dress and busy greeting every guest with a fake, wide smile. She looked so confident and so smug in her victory. She even had the nerve to walk up to me near the buffet and whisper, "I'm honestly surprised you showed up after what you did. Aren't you embarrassed to show your face?" I just looked directly into her eyes and smiled back. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, Elena," I said quietly. She laughed and walked away, thinking she had won the final round. She was relaxed and happy, drinking and telling everyone how much she loved our parents. She thought the Maya problem was completely solved. She thought she was safe in her golden tower of lies and theft. But I had already prepared the large projector screen in the corner where they were going to show a slideshow of family photos. I had swapped the thumb drive. After the main dinner, my father stood up on the small stage to give a speech. He thanked everyone for coming and started talking about the importance of family, loyalty, and trust. It was incredibly painful to hear him speak. He looked at Elena with so much pride and love in his eyes. Then he said, "And now, we have a very special surprise. A look back at 40 years of our family lives together." He pointed to the large projector screen. The room went quiet as the first photo appeared. It was my parents' wedding day 40 years ago. Everyone cheered and clapped. But then, I stepped forward toward the stage. "Dad, wait," I said clearly into the silence. "Before we continue the photos, I have one simple question for Elena." Elena looked annoyed and rolled her eyes. "Not now, Maya, stop being a child," she snapped. I ignored her entirely. "Elena, you told everyone I sent an email to your boss, Mr. Henderson. But your boss is a woman named Sarah Miller. Why did you lie about that? And why did you tell Chloe you wrote the emails yourself?" The room went deathly silent. "I don't know what you're talking about. You're making things up again." Elena stammered, her voice rising an octave. She tried to laugh it off to the guests. "Maya is having one of her mental episodes again. Everyone, please, just ignore her." But I didn't stop or move. I walked over to the laptop connected to the projector and hit a single button. The family slideshow stopped instantly. Instead of a happy photo, a giant, clear image of a bank statement appeared on the screen for everyone to see. It showed $20,000 moving from Grandma's surgery account directly to an account named E. Whitmore Personal. People started shifting uncomfortably in their seats. I heard a loud, sharp gasp from my mother in the front row. "This is a bank record from last month," I said calmly to the crowd. "And here, I clicked the mouse again, is the forged signature Elena used to steal that money from our sick grandmother. Elena rushed toward the stage, trying to grab the laptop. She's hacking. She's lying, she screamed. But my father held up his hand firmly. Let her finish, he said. I played the audio recording. Elena's own voice filled the ballroom, bragging about how clueless our parents were and how she had successfully framed me for her own crimes. The guests were frozen in their seats. Some looked at the floor in deep shame for believing her. Others stared at Elena in total horror. Her entire story was falling apart in real time, right in front of the people she cared about most. Every lie she had told over the last few months was being systematically dismantled in front of 50 people. She tried to interrupt, she tried to cry, she even tried to scream that it was an AI voice, but the evidence was too detailed. I showed the records from her previous job, proving she had been fired for theft before. I showed my own corporate work logs proving I was in a meeting during her fake email timeline. The perfect daughter was gone forever. In her place was a woman who had robbed her own family. She started to panic, looking around for an exit, but the room was a wall of cold faces. The full, ugly truth was finally out in the open. It wasn't just about the stolen money, it was about the systematic destruction of our family's trust and love. I explained to the silent room how she had whispered lies to Grandma in the hospital and how she had manipulated our little brother, Leo, to hate me. My mother was shaking violently, her hands over her mouth in grief. My father looked like he had aged 10 years in just 10 minutes. They saw her clearly for the first time in their lives. They saw the greed, the coldness, and the calculated cruelty beneath the gold dress. Elena tried to make one last, desperate excuse. I only did it because I was under so much pressure to be perfect, she wailed, her makeup running down her face. You guys don't know how hard it is to be me. But no one was buying the act anymore. The victim performance was permanently broken. The room was no longer filled with judgment for me. It was filled with a dark realization. She had used everyone. The consequences were immediate and devastating. My father walked slowly over to Elena on the stage and asked for her keys to Grandma's house and the car he had bought her. Leave this party right now, he said. It wasn't a loud shout. It was a cold, final command that echoed in the hall. My mother didn't even look at her as she passed. She just sat in her chair and cried for the daughter she thought she had. The guests began to leave the hotel quietly, not knowing what to say to us. Elena stood in the middle of the ballroom, her sparkling dress looking cheap and tattered in the harsh light of the truth. She had lost everything in one single hour. She lost her reputation, her family's trust, and her entire future. My father told her he would be calling the police and the family lawyer in the morning to discuss the theft. Elena tried to speak, her mouth moving but no sound coming out, because she had run out of lies. No one would ever believe her again. I didn't stay to watch her cry or pack her bags. I didn't feel a sense of triumph or happiness as I walked out of the hotel. I just felt a deep, heavy sense of exhaustion. I walked out to the parking lot and found Leo waiting by my car. He came over and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I'm so sorry, Maya, he whispered into my shoulder. I should have known you would never do those things. That was the only victory I truly needed to move forward. I didn't destroy my sister. I didn't have to. I just stopped covering for her mistakes and let the cold truth do its work. Elena had built a house out of lies, and she was the one who pulled the final string that made it all come crashing down. I drove home to my peaceful apartment. I put on the kettle and watched the moon rise over the city. For the first time in a year, my heart was at rest. I wasn't the lying sister anymore. I was just Maya, and I was finally free.